Tommy. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So, you've done a lot of documentaries on scary movies. What made you want to take a deeper look at scary movies in general?
I grew up watching horror movies of the 80s. I was that kid who loved horror. All my friends got together and we did the slumber party, renting VHS of the movies that we weren't supposed to watch. And I came into horror a little later than some of the people that I know, but as a kid, I loved them. And when I had the opportunity to start exploring the making of these movies and meet these people, I just couldn't say no. It was just this amazing opportunity to talk to the people who made Friday the 13th and who made A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I feel like that got my wheels spinning in that documentary direction because just to be able to kind of relive the movie that you loved growing up in another way through the eyes of the people who made it was just it was so great. I mean, when you're a kid, you're kind of reading the pages of Fangoria, right? And how did they do this? And looking behind the scenes. And I feel like before these kinds of big documentaries, you had those magazines, and now we have the documentaries to augment that. So I feel like it was this confluence of loving the movies, loving how they were made, and getting the chance to have those conversations with people.
Why did you think it was time to do Chucky now, or had you been wanting to do Chucky for quite some time?
This actually came about years before we even started doing it. Michael Perez and I, who worked on this together, he and I had worked together on other ones, on the Elm Street documentary, the Friday the 13th, the one on Scream, one on Return of the Living Dead. And we sort of thought to ourselves, we're running out of franchises. There's not that many more to do. And the idea had come my way earlier, but it just didn't feel like the right time. There were still Chucky movies being made for sure, and it just didn't feel like it was time to kind of put that story together. So I kind of let that go. And then when Chucky just started blowing up all over again with, they did Curse, which did really well, and they did Cult, which did really well, and it just brought Chucky forward. And then the TV series, it really felt like the right time. So we started making preliminary calls of just, hey, this is the work I've done before, and now I'm looking at tackling this. Would you be interested in talking? And we were so lucky that so many people immediately said, absolutely, that's a great idea. We'd love to do it. So it felt like the right time to explore another horror icon that had not been given the treatment of like this multi 5 hour look back on all the feature films.
Yeah, it seemed like everyone involved, no matter how big or small their role is, they were so excited to be a part of this and to be a part of the Chucky slash Child's Play universe. Why do you think horror is able to have these long-standing franchises that other genres aren't really able to do?
I think part of it is the fact that you have in horror these characters, villains, final girls, these characters that we latch onto that take us back to our childhood as fans, or if you're a new fan, you find something to love in the current iteration or the current day, and they're saying something. And I feel like they are showing us a version of the world where it's a terrible, terrible place and terrible things are happening, but in a way, you get to live out being the hero and defeating the villain. I think that horror allows us to confront fears that we have, confront fears that we didn't even know we have, and find a way to latch onto a character and become them and learn more about ourselves in watching them. And they're just fun. Horror movies are great. I mean, you get to be scared, you get to be safe, you get to watch the goop and the gore, and you just have a really great time. I think, again, it goes back for me to those slumber parties with my friends and renting the VHS tapes and watching Evil Dead, even though our parents are telling us not to. But horror just has this way of pulling you in and kind of wrapping you up in that story. And of course, there are other movies that James Bond is going on and on and on. And I feel like there are people who see themselves in James Bond or they want to see themselves in James Bond. I think it's the same thing with horror. I think you want to have that safe space to let all of that fear and anger out.
Yes. I'm going to hop around a lot during this.
Yeah.
So, Child's Play attempted to have a reboot, which I consider to be a blemish in the franchise, but also had nothing to do with the franchise. It's just basically ignored. Why do you think that didn't work?
Oh my gosh. I think it's probably tough to try to reinvent something anyway. Even if, let's pretend the Child's Play slash Chucky franchise was done, you're still trying to reinvent something that has iconography over the course of decades, has a fandom that is based over the course of decades. People grew up with these movies. So I think it's fine for someone to put their stamp on it and their take on it, but I don't know that you can just rely anymore on a title. I think you have to also find a way to tap into what people loved about that original before you can just expect them to come on board. I mean, look, A Nightmare on Elm Street also attempted it, and for better or worse, we all know how that went. Um, I, I just feel like you're not just trying to retell a story, you're trying to re-engage decades of fans. And that's really tough. It's hard to engage fans on the next movie. You're always crossing your fingers, right? So now you're asking fans, ignore all that and come with us on this ride. It's really tough. It's so tough to watch that and not think of the Chucky we all know and love. So I don't know. I mean, no one knows the answer, right? No one knows what's going to work and what's not going to work. But all I know is that the Chucky we know and love is alive and well in our documentary.
Yes. I felt like the Chucky TV series was a great addition to the franchise, but I was very reluctant to it in the beginning. I was like, how is this going to transfer from a movie to a TV series? What were your feelings and how did you think it went?
Well, I think you bring up a really great point that goes back to one of the things we just talked about. Why why it's not only a fantastic continuation, but I think why it worked is you have Don Mancini.
Mhm.
He has been with this from the beginning. He knows how to carry it over. He knows how to carry it through. He's also the one who knows the 10 steps ahead that we don't. So he can see this giant picture and we're lucky enough that he's giving us these pieces now in that show. So I think it worked because it was absolutely the through line of everything it needed to be with its creator at the helm. And that's so critical and so crucial. Again, bringing with you to this series, he was bringing with him decades of iconography and decades of fans, and he did it right, you know? And it was good. It was scary. It was fun. I mean, yeah, it was all done right. And I think one could say, well, how do you do it wrong? We've seen how many people can do certain things wrong. He knows how to do it right, and he did. And that's why it works.
Yes. As someone, as you said, that is a fan of the franchise, what's been your favorite death?
Oh gosh. Okay. I have to say off the top of my head, Claire gets killed in Cult of Chucky. It's a symphony of horror. It is gorgeous. It is frightening. It is sad. I mean, you see her, she has that one tear coming down her eyes, and Chucky is so gleeful. And I feel like it's one of the most powerful moments where throughout the franchise, you're kind of with Chucky, right? We're always sort of with the villain, right? We're with Freddy, we're with Jason, we're with Chucky. But in this one, I just felt so terrible. And for that split second, I was so angry at Chucky for doing exactly what he should have done.
Hmm.
But when the glass comes down, it's gorgeous and it's horrific and it's so incredibly memorable. So that's probably my favorite and most memorable of the franchise.
Yes. Do you have a favorite character in the franchise other than that's not a doll? That's not a doll, to make it fair.
A character that I love that's not a doll. Um, I have to say, I'm going to go way back to the beginning. I love, love, love Catherine Hicks's character. I love Karen Barkley. You know what? It's so rare, even then, really, to see a fantastic, strong adult in a horror movie.
Mhm.
Like she was so put together and so frazzled at the same time. She was all of us and every parent, I'm sure, who saw the movie at the time, going through that. I just believed her in a way that in a lot of horror movies, I don't remember believing quite as much. And I loved that she loved her child, and I loved that she tried to convince everyone that she wasn't crazy. And I think why that also works so well is we're sort of ahead of her because and everyone else because we do see what's going on even as she's trying to convince everyone and it still totally works. So I'm going to go on team Karen Barkley. I love her. I love that she loved her son and she did everything and she was like a final mom, right? I mean,
Yes, I completely agree. I completely agree. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me. Congrats on this, and I can't wait to talk to you about future projects.
thank you so much. It was awesome to talk to you.
Awesome. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.